Hey, hey, beginning in 30 seconds. All right, I think I'm in focus. Can everybody hear me? Let me know in the chat if you can hear me just fine. And I have all of your questions that you've submitted from Instagram, and we'll also be taking some questions in the chat. So, but the chat is not in real time. Easier to get it from Instagram. And if you click on the stories, you can type a question in there. There are a lot of questions. I mean, it's endless. So I'm going to go through as many questions as I can. A lot of them are the same. And I'm gonna check. All right, you can hear me, which is great. A lot of yeses. Thank you for the help, because this is only my second live stream to kind of coach you through how to get a PS5 restock. And some of you have already gotten it. You're sticking around, which is great. And you're helping a lot of other people. That's really nice. A lot of thanks within the question, so not actually a question. Always love seeing that. But this just goes on forever. And that's a really great thing. So we're gonna start with the Instagram questions and then pivot to the chat a little. I am going to post the Instagram handle so that if you want to ask questions now, that box is still there in the Instagram stories. It's not too late. I'm going to post that now in the chat, and it's fun maneuvering and trying to do this at the same time. Let's get that in the chat. And I pinned it at the very top of the chat, so you can click on that, ask a question, still remain in chat. And if you're on the phone, you just navigate away for a second, but still listen. So that's good. Yeah, if you can hear me, let me know. Nah, it looks good. Cool. All right, so I'm gonna tamp down one of the lights over here based on your feedback. There we go. How's that now? Good, much better. All right, that's good. All right, that should be good. All right, so let's begin with question number one. Then we'll go to the chat. So we're going with one of the Instagram questions. A lot of good questions out there. What should we plan for 4th of July restocks for the PS5? This also applies to Xbox Series X. And in my opinion, we probably won't see restocks during the holidays. We didn't see that from Memorial Day. In fact, all around Memorial Day, there was a big drought, including the week after Memorial Day, because Memorial Day was Monday. That entire week, we pretty much saw nothing from retailers. Retailers, just like everybody else, like to take the time off. And the people involved in turning that add to cart button have to be monitoring the restocks. So, therefore, they want to take that time off, spend time with their family. So, when you think about it that way, we probably won't see a lot of restocks for either PS5 or Xbox Series X. But we usually see it right before then, so by the end of this week, we should see another retailer have at least one more restock. So, looking at more questions, I can turn up the volume right there. So now that's a little bit louder. Thank you for the feedback. Yeah, the microphone, draw that a little bit closer. So I'll go to question number 2. Pick from these Instagram messages again. That's a great way to just kind of categorize everything. It really helps me. Why doesn't my mom love me? Oof. That is one that I'm not going to touch. But it's a very good question. So, all right, is Target up next for this week for PS5? So, Target didn't drop today, and they may or may not drop tomorrow, and I hate to give people that advice because it's a good question. I hate to give people that advice because they drop at like 7:40 a.m. Eastern, which is 4:40 a.m. Pacific. And that's a difficult proposition for a lot of people. And if you're telling people, all right, you have to get up on both Wednesday and Thursday because it's either a Wednesday or Thursday that happens, at least that's been the consistent day in 2021, the day of the week, one of those 2 days of the week, then that's a tall order for a lot of people, more so on the West Coast than the East Coast. So they don't have enough inventory. My buddy Jake Randall kind of has some good photographic evidence of the Zebra devices, which are devices that they use in the that employees use at Target, and that tells you how much inventory is in each store in around that specific store where that employee is. It's like 2 to 3. In some cases, there's a little bit more. My sources see the same thing. So unless it's going to be a really small drop, I don't think it's going to happen this week, but it could happen tomorrow, more likely next week. So that's what's happening with Target. They did one about 2 weeks ago, and I just don't think they've replenished enough. So I would rather them hold off until next week when a lot more people could get a PS5 or Xbox. So it may be a little bit of a wait, but hopefully we'll see more consoles then. Do you know if there'll be another Xbox restock this week? I mean, there should be. We saw Best Buy have a restock on Monday. That was really the leftovers from Thursday. Thursday was kind of an anomaly because it was the latest PS5 restock, and the shipments came in late. Because those shipments came in late, what I think happened is not every store had the consoles. I mean, that's what I know for a fact some of the stores didn't have them until the last second. So that means that some of those stores had a restock on Monday. Those are the leftover consoles. That's the working theory out there. So in terms of this next week, we haven't seen Microsoft have a restock in quite some time, and then sometimes they do Thursdays. So that's something to look out for, Thursday afternoons. And they ship pretty fast. It's a Microsoft store, so they don't charge you for bundles. And then the other retailer that we should say in the US is GameStop. So GameStop usually does have a restock about every 10 to 15 days. So far, it's been 12. So that's a really good sign that we may see something before the 4th of July from them. Not guaranteed. They do bundles. But, yeah, that's what to look for. And it seems like in the chat, things are going well. Amazon PS5 restock, I'll take a question from there. No, we just saw one last week. So they do anywhere between 15 and 54 days. So really big gaps there. It's like unpredictable. And they're pretty tight-lipped there. That's just the Amazon way. We do have like some sources that tell us about, there's these, PS5 boxes moving around our warehouse. But like no one who's in charge of the add to cart button anymore, so it's really impossible for us to tell, other than, well, it could be happening because some shipments came in. Really, really hard to tell. But since they just did one for, I think, the last 3 hours of Prime Day last week, probably won't see one for a little while longer, and I would guess that's sometime in July. They usually go back and forth between like midnight, usually midnight Pacific time, but this past time it was Eastern, and like 11 a.m. So this time it may be during the day. That's just a guess because that's the pattern they followed all 2021. Should I go to StockX and buy a PS5 for $700? I waited long enough. LOL. Oof, that's a great question. StockX is an option, but my advice is you've waited this long and they're becoming so much easier to buy that you're probably going to have an easy time within, I'd say, the next 2 weeks. I mean, like, demand is still there. Production hasn't changed. It's still really low. But, yeah, I would say stick with it for at least 2 more weeks because you should see more inventory from the retailers because the demand it's still there, but it has waned a little bit because you have to think. You look at my replies. There are so many people who've gotten it in the past 2 weeks. It's a really, really good sign for you. Mendez got your question from Instagram. Thank you very much. You can click on that pinned link if you want to ask some more questions. I'll read it here. I'm going to take a question from... I have a question, Matt. Well, I guess that was a question, and the answer is yes, you do. Best Buy restock, we kind of went over that. Just want to say thanks. That's really nice. Yeah, same thing with Amazon Xbox Series X. So they had the Xbox Series X in the middle of the day on, I think, the second day of Amazon Prime Day. So that's a recent restock. So we probably won't see anything then either. All right. Same thing about Best Buy. All right, Walmart. That's a new question. So Walmart usually does Thursdays for PS5 restocks and also Xbox Series X. So they really haven't done too many outside of that. Sometimes they do a small drop at like 3 a.m. on a random weekday. But yeah, Walmart, we usually know in advance if it's a really big restock. So because they get a press release being with Tech Radar, then you will see a news story from us if it's something that involves a press release. We haven't had that since, I'd say, March 18th. So it's been a while since they've done a whole big, public relations push. But hopefully we find out in advance if they give us a heads up, and you'll find that on my Twitter and Tech Radar, because I always have that tweet ready to go when there's going to be a big restock at Walmart. So on Thursdays, they usually send it around just after noontime Eastern, and the restock is almost always 3 o'clock. Sometimes it was at 3:30 a couple times, but when it's a big one, it's usually lined up for 3 o'clock Eastern. So that's 12 o'clock Pacific. All right, getting more questions. PS Direct. That is a question I see reflected in some of the Instagram stories, many of the Instagram stories, because PlayStation Direct, that's Sony's official website for the PlayStation brand. And it's well liked because it has this virtual queue system which picks out people randomly, and it's a lottery system. You can kind of game the lottery a little bit by having a couple devices, a couple web browsers, and trying to kind of get more chances. Don't have tabs open, individual tabs, because it's the same cookie. It's the same, you're going to be in the same place in line. But separate devices, separate browsers. If you open up Safari, if you open up Twitter, actually, that's a little secret. The Twitter Safari run web browser within Twitter is different from the Safari web browser. So that gives you another chance. That is a restock I always look forward to. Usually we get tipped off. And usually, not always, as we know from last week, usually if they do these special email invites that go out to random PSN users, PlayStation Network users, you are going to will know if it's at 2 p.m. for those people, 2 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific. Then we'll know they usually open up that queue to everybody else. It's a separate queue, much harder. It's almost guaranteed. It's not quite guaranteed, but it's almost guaranteed that you will get a PS5 if you're in that first queue, that special limited queue with the email invite. Again, I've probably the most frequent question I've gotten, and I'll just sum it up here. It's going to knock out at least 50, maybe 60 of the thousands of questions that I've gotten. How to get a PSN invite. And everybody keeps asking me this on Twitter. And I know people are asking it right now in the chat. So how to get that PSN or that PlayStation Direct restock special email invite. There are two official ways to do it. First way is what Sony says themselves. They say it's based on PlayStation activity. What that means, no one knows. Yeah, you have to have a registered account. And people say, I play all the time with it, on PlayStation Network, and I still haven't seen anything. And now some people who've gotten the invite previously are seeing it right now a second time because they've gotten it the first couple months of the console. So they're kind of feeling burned about that, and I understand that. So that is that's the first way to do it. The second way is in your account management. You can do this on the web. You don't have to go to a console or anything. It's easier to do it on the web. Log into your account. Make sure you remember your password. You should know that anyway. And you're going to have the ability to opt into marketing emails. That's not a proven theory that this works, but if you're desperate for a PlayStation 5 and getting that special email invite, you might as well give it a shot. So again, kind of skeptical that that's it. I think they're just picking PSN users at random, but Sony Direct, if you want the best shot, you might as well try both ways. Being a PSN user, whatever activity means, I guess have lots of it. They don't even say you have to have increased activity or a lot of activity, just activity. It's very vague. And then the other thing is definitely opt into the email marketing. So that may be, so we're at like 962 viewers, which is great. Yeah, and I'm here to give as many tips as possible, answer your questions that you've been submitting on Instagram. There's a lot of questions. And yeah, there's some people here, and I can see them in the chat. There's some people here for GPUs. So graphics cards are kind of even harder to get than some of the consoles. NVIDIA RTX 3080, for example. I post about it usually daily, and that's because it's a hard thing to get, and it's going to remain that way until 2022. So Newegg usually has a raffle. They call it the Newegg Shuffle, and they have GPUs that are kind of not impossible to get, but it's difficult. And that's definitely something that you should look into, though, because usually 5 to 7 of my followers each time reply and say, "Oh, I got it," with proof that they, were picked. You still have to buy it at full price. Sometimes it's like $10 over. That's a small price to pay because these are going for like 2 to 3 times their price on eBay. So definitely something to look into daily. I'll post about that daily. I usually have a news post about that. And yeah, so look for those GPU restocks. The other one that to look out for is Best Buy. Best Buy has it about every 2 weeks. They did one last Thursday, so we may see it next Thursday after the 4th of July holiday. Check on Thursday, check my Twitter. I usually post a notification about that because that's the one chance you have. The one I don't post very often is Amazon, because Amazon just puts out very few restocks. How long will it take to get a Best Buy PS5 that it sounds like you've already got a Best Buy PS5 restock, probably from, I'm guessing, this past Monday. That is good news there. It usually takes like 3 to 5 days, so you probably will have it by if not the end of this week, early next week. I've seen it take 7 days for some people because they say, "Oh, I'm on my way to pick it up. It's been almost a week." So it should be 3 to 5 days though. If you don't have it by 5 days, I I wouldn't get worried, but that's been about the average for people, so that's good. Will my boyfriend love me more if I buy him this damn PS5? Yes. That's how this works, and that's why I'd say 10% of the users are buying it, because their boyfriend has demanded it, and that is the one present that people want. Kids want it. I mean, like, Christmas time. You have to think all those kids who got promised a PS5, for Christmas, and then the parents were probably like, okay, we'll just get it in January. We'll have it next month. It'll just be a late present. And then it doesn't come in January, and it's February, and then March. Then March turns into April. April turns into May. And June. We're almost done June, and we're on July, and there's a lot of kids who don't have it. And then, like, they're just going to get it for next Christmas if it continues. So, yeah. So little Timmy needs his PS5. And that's my one piece of advice. I responded to someone on Twitter today, because I try to get to all your comments, but it's very difficult. People keep asking how long Best Buy will take to restock and also to ship. It's probably going to be another week before PS5 does an actual restock at Best Buy. But yeah, you have to think. I responded to this one comment. Someone wanted to give up on getting a PS5 and like, I'll just get it in a couple months. And it's like, no, that's a bad idea. October, if you don't get it by October, you're going to run into some serious trouble. It's not going to be impossible. People are still going to get it, but it's going to be much harder because, again, I referenced little Timmy. His mom and dad are going to say, oh, we have to get the PS5 all of a sudden because he wants it for Christmas. And then there's going to be just this whole new audience who realize that they need this console in October. So if you don't have it by the end of September, that's going to be trouble because that new audience is going to show up and want the PS5 and the Xbox as well. But Xbox is becoming easier to get. I'm going to print a story tomorrow. It's like, you can actually get a Xbox Series X fairly easily. Not the easiest in the world, but to the point where I may just start doing fewer posts about the Xbox Series X if people are still thanking me for, saying, oh, I got it. Thanks for your alerts. So that's good. I'll still keep doing it as long as I see those. But yeah, it's not as pressing of an issue for a lot of people, which is great. Target does an Xbox Series X restock at some location, so you may not see my alerts for that reason, because it's not every location. It's very sparse, and they're doing it not on specific restock dates, but they're doing it as it comes into individual stores, which makes it much more difficult if only Chicago select stores get it and only San Francisco select stores get it. Like, it's hard to put out a nationwide alert when it's 7:40 in the morning or 4:40 in the morning for a lot of people. I wake a lot of people up because they have no notifications turned on, and I'm very cognizant. You won't see a lot of tweets from me that are miscellaneous tweets, and it's because I try to be cognizant of the fact that people have their notifications turned on, and I don't want to get you up in the middle of the night. So let's see. Let's take another question from the chat. Yeah. Okay, scammers. All right. How come scammers don't go to Xbox and PS5? So I'm just going to address the scammers issue. There are a lot of scams out there for both the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X. A lot of them. Every day someone comes to me and is like, hey, is this real? And usually they've already fallen for it before they ask me, which is a big mistake. But I try to educate people as much as possible that like, don't pay people, Twitter people, who will be like, oh, I'm a verified reseller. You're just saying that? That doesn't add up. So be careful. Don't send your money to other people. If I'm not tweeting it, it's probably something wrong with that website or that reseller. So just don't trust people on Twitter. If you don't recognize the store brand, it's probably a phony store. There are a lot of stores that popped up that are fake since November when both the Xbox and the PS5 launched. So be careful of that. The only stores that you might not have heard of, some people have heard of Newegg, some people have not. That's a component store. Very few people have heard of Ant Online. Those are the two weirdest ones out there that you probably haven't heard of. Everything else is a household name. Everybody knows GameStop by now, especially after the past year. Walmart, Target, Best Buy, Amazon, like, you have to know these. So if it's not Newegg and it's not online, you don't recognize it, it's probably a bad sign. You're not going to have a good day if you buy from what was that? Speedplaystation.com? Oh, yeah, that seems legit. So, yeah, that site just popped up out of nowhere. So, taking some more questions. Again, there are a lot of questions. I'm really thankful for that because I want to help you out, and like submitting them to Instagram helps me categorize everything and see them versus a million direct messages that are in individual windows. I'll still take those sometimes, but I don't get to all of them, and I kind of want to, answer as many questions as possible. Yeah, all right. Decide to switch to Team Xbox. When will I be able to find one in Atlanta? Well, that's a really silly question because I don't know local store inventory, but as I did say, Target has been restocking locally every morning. So if you're in Atlanta and it's the morning, you may see a restock in your local area. It's not going to be every store, and there's not going to be a lot because, again, they're restocking as they come in. But should you switch to Team Xbox? I've seen a lot of people switch to Xbox because they can't find a PlayStation 5 and they're just frustrated. I don't blame you, and I think the Xbox is a pretty good value, especially with the Game Pass, which is trying to become the Netflix of gaming. So, yeah, let's take another question from the chat. Let's see. All right, do you think it's a bad idea to code a bot, and how do you do it? Saw that question. That is very complicated, and one of the problems with, doing a bot or something like that is, unless you're experienced in doing it, a lot of people, like average people, want to do it and say, oh, that's something for me. And it just gives off a lot of false pings. So for me, I act as like the middleman, and I can kind of curate those pings and tell you if there's restock happening. And the biggest mistake people make is that they think being the fastest to these restocks is the route to success, and it's not that as much as it's being persistent. So a lot of my followers will get a restock. They'll go to a restock opportunity and they'll get the console like 20 minutes later. So it's not usually the first one. It's that persistence. The only reason to show up minute one is you get more chances to try and hit the add to cart button. It's almost like for every 1,000 people who click the add to cart button, one person gets it into their cart, and every 1,000 people who get it into their cart, one person gets to check out with it. That's almost what it's like. It's the retailers playing with the add to cart button. The only retailer who really doesn't do that is Ant Online. They just open up the floodgates, and that's why it lasts only 1 minute, anywhere from 1 minute to 3 minutes. It used to be 3 minutes, but now they have bundles that are kind of expensive to thwart a lot of scammers who don't want to try to resell 3 games along with the console. That's much harder for them to do. Yeah, they sell out in less than 3 minutes, now down to 1 minute, and they don't play with the add to cart button. Every other retailer does, so that's why people get frustrated. Like, I had it in my cart and it just disappeared. They're playing around with the whole system, and it lasts longer than 3 minutes. It can last up to 30 minutes, but it's an unfun process, and I'm totally with you all in that it shouldn't be like that, but that's how it stands. All right, you've been trying to get a PS5 since March, still no luck. I totally hear you, and like I did say, much easier to get an Xbox Series X and starting to get easier to get a PS5. Still not completely easy. Easier is all relative. I just say keep at it because as soon as those alerts land, give it a shot. Again, you don't have to be minute one, but depending on the retailer, you have anywhere from 10 minutes to about 30 minutes to check out. Sometimes it pushes to 40 minutes, and still people are able to get a console. And that's like one of the most delightful things in my replies. Someone says, I didn't try for like 40 minutes because I didn't know about the alert. They didn't check their stuff. But let's see. All right, another question. Do GameStop power-up members get any priority in obtaining new consoles? That's a really, really good question from the chat. Thank you for that. And the answer is yes, but only as of recently. So I think it costs like $15 and you get a year's worth of like extra incentives like discounts and stuff like that. But it's Game Informer. You get the digital magazine. It's a pretty good deal. You're supporting journalism. I work for Tech Radar, journalism outlet. So yeah, that's a good thing. And like it's the fact that they're splitting it off is actually a good thing in some ways, because it eats into resellers' profits, and they're less likely to go buy a membership and a bundle. That's going to be harder for them to resell. So I'm kind of actually hoping Amazon does that one day with their membership. All right. Bro, is Target dropping PS5s tomorrow? And when does Walmart and GameStop restock? So one day I will bring this chat closer to me instead of having to go off camera. But so Target, as I said, it's usually a Wednesday or Thursday. Tomorrow being Thursday, could be tomorrow, but it's so early. I definitely don't suggest staying up. Don't disrupt your sleep schedule, because it's so early. 7:40 a.m. in the East Coast, 4:40 in the West Coast. That's disruptive, because they have such low inventory. So it's going to be hard, even if they do have a restock tomorrow. More likely to be next week, so they can build up inventory. I'd rather see that myself. I'd rather see a lot of people get it and see success than get frustrated. All right. Why are you the best at telling us when restock drops are at retailers? I'm not the best, and there are other people doing it. I think we all have our own way of doing it. For example, there's a guy named Cameron Ritz who goes by KillerCam 1020, great guy. And what he does is he'll ping more often, but sometimes there's false alerts. But like he'll get a console restock that may just have a flash restock, so that's really good. But I am the exact opposite in that I don't want to ping you unless I know it's like a big restock where more than 10 people can walk away with it. And so we just all have a different style, and I really like that because there's a variety of people to follow. And for me, it's I don't want to warn you because I get feedback from people. Like my favorite stories where I work in pest control and I can't really carry my phone too much, so when it goes off, like I rush to it and I hate the false pings. Like, okay, that stuck in my mind obviously because I mentioned it a couple times. There's a cross-country truck driver who can't really check his phone. It sounds dangerous. I don't want to get people hurt with that, so I want to make sure that I'm limiting most of my tweets to like nighttime if it's like something miscellaneous like this, where I'm trying to answer your questions. If it's during the day, it's probably going to be a restock. So that's where I think I have carved a niche to help out. Got another question from the chat? No, two. All right, part one. Console drops aside, what is your personal preference, PS5 or Xbox as a home console? Ooh, that's a good question. Part two. Do you buy what's first available if your favorite game is cross-platform, or is it worth holding out for? Two loaded questions, especially like my personal preference. So I have both an Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 disc. That's a great question from the chat, and I thank you for that question. I'm stalling because like that's a tough one. I think I will grow to like the PlayStation 5 better, and there's a game like Ratchet & Clank: A Rift Apart. Great game. That's one that you can only get on PlayStation 5. It's not on PC. It's not on Xbox, obviously. It's a PlayStation-owned family brand. It's Insomniac doing that. I think that those exclusives will drive me to PlayStation a little bit more. But as I mentioned, the value for Xbox Game Pass is unprecedented. It's the Netflix of video games. It's the closest thing we have to that. I think that's really good. I think we will one day see PlayStation do that same thing. But for now, there's a lot of EA games on there that you can't get anywhere else, where you have to pay for individually. Those Microsoft's games, day one, are going to be on Xbox Game Pass, and it's about anywhere from $10 to $15 a month for that service, depending on if you want it for PCs. It's an extra, like it's that $15, it's extra $5, and also EA games. I think it's worth the extra $5, and it's a great thing to buy into. So I think people ending up with the Xbox Series S, which is $299, will actually have like almost Game Pass machine. It's not 4K native, and it has half the hard drive storage, but still a really good deal. And I see a lot of people buying both consoles. So if you buy PS5 disc, which I highly recommend over PS5 digital, and either Xbox, those are really good purchases. And I see a lot of people coming back to my Twitter feed and buying both. So yeah, you can ask questions here, and you can get my alerts from Twitter. That's how we've been working it. So let's see, we still have 766 people in the chat. Yeah, ooh, that's a lot of people. Let's see. 2 sites to clear. All right. Let's see. All right. So we got more questions. I'm going to take another question from Instagram because people have been submitting new questions. And there's just thousands of questions here. All right. Will I ever be able to get a PS5 at MSRP for my son? MSRP is a manufacturer suggested retail price for people who don't know that. Sometimes I get questions on Twitter. What is MSRP? That's what that is. It's just retail price. It's not an inflated price. You can get it. Easier to get it with bundle, and I highly recommend that if you're like tired of waiting. You're probably going to buy some games anyway. There are rare cases if you get a really nice person working at GameStop that will let you take back some of the games for in-store credit. That's a really good thing. I've had that happen to me before where that was offered to me. And yeah, I think there's ways around, paying so much for a console in games that you don't want. So definitely look for those avenues. PS5 is stinky. Good question. I don't think that's a question, but that's a good comment. All right. Best TVs for PS5. Ooh, great question, and one I probably answer every single day. And that for me is probably the LG CX series, or the LG C1 series is top of the line, at least in terms of OLEDs. The Samsung Q90 is really good. I've used that TV a lot. That's top of the line for LEDs. It's Samsung's flagship QLED display, QLED TV. So definitely check out those TVs, top of the line. Vizio makes a great TV. TCL makes a great TV. I use a TCL currently. It's a TCL Roku TV. The 6 series is phenomenal for its price. So those are on like a little bit cheaper side. Will I be doing a giveaway soon? Glad you asked. That comes from Instagram, and I did tease a giveaway when I went to GameStop, and there was like an Xbox Series X left over, and there was no one to claim it. They did a rare, and I say rare because I don't want people going to stores. They did a rare in-person or in-store restock about 2 weeks ago, and there was a leftover Series X after the line had opened, and I kind of I was like, all right, I'm gonna grab this and put it in as a giveaway. So I'm working on a system for people who stick around in my different social media. So like everything's free that I do. You don't have to pay for like donations or anything. I can't really accept donations as a journalist, but I can when Black Friday comes around, for example, and I want to pump up our articles and everybody clicks, that worked really well on Amazon Prime Day. So I got like a lot of people to visit our site, and the hard work, because we do like super duper overtime for Amazon Prime Day to curate all the deals. That's beneficial for me as a journalist. So that's the only payment I accept is like, oh, you visit my Twitter, you visit my Instagram. There's a newsletter that's really good, and YouTube. So the fact that people are subscribing more now and liking the video, like, that helps me out as a journalist trying to get my message out there. And like, I'll have a really, really good story soon that I can't tell you about, but I get to put that out there. So I'm going to take a few more questions. And is there a true shortage? Yes. I'll go through the 3 things that are stopping the PlayStation and the Xbox from being restocked so quickly. First, COVID happened, and there was a shortage on making semiconductors. So that was an issue. That's an obvious issue. Like production was down. Okay.
to the point that they delayed the announcement of the PlayStation 5 for a little while. 2, there's definitely there was a rise in demand on PCs. So your the whole accounting department, for example, needed a laptop that was stuck. The desktop was stuck in the office. So all of a sudden, like millions of people needed a home computer for work. So there was that. Grabbing more questions, and the third thing is shipments. So like all these shipments stopped, and then they increased, and a lot of customs were not on there. All right, if you're physically unable to do a store pickup, are there any retailers that offer shipping to make exceptions? Oh, such a good question, and not the first time I've heard that. Best Buy and Target are the ones that do in-store pickup. Again, you have to order online. Outside of that, everybody else does shipping. So as long as you avoid those two retailers, and I like those retailers because they're easier to get, and like you can't have a reseller, a scalper, go there and pick up 5 consoles. It's very difficult to wear that many disguises and mustaches. So therefore, it's kind of a good thing. But if you can't make it there, Amazon's always viable, and Walmart is probably your best bet. Just because Walmart has so much inventory. Amazon doesn't drop very often, but when they do, there's usually enough inventory there. There's reportedly 50,000 consoles, thereabouts, when there's a restock. Sometimes there's a lot less. But yeah, that's in the realm of, and like those last less than 5 minutes. So you have to think people are just ripping through these as quickly as possible. But as more people get them, demand drops. All of a sudden, those 50,000 people don't need a console anymore. Some of them don't make it to the actual customer, though, as we've seen, because they go lost in shipping. So, yeah, so sometimes people, like, more than is normal, says, my console went missing, through, various shipping methods. Amazon uses a variety of carriers. So, trying to take some more questions there. He will tweet when he knows. Yeah, so that's how the process works. Most people are subscribed to my Twitter, which is right there, and they check out the articles on Tech Radar, which is great. But I will tweet when I know there's a restock. Sometimes I know in advance, sometimes I don't. It's just what warehouse people tell me, and they've really haven't been wrong. There was, on last Thursday, I predicted or said that wouldn't happen because it was later than it normally was, and there was no inventory at specific locations. They got inventory later than expected, and I didn't think they would actually do it, but they had a restock. So for the most part, I get it right, and that was based off of valid information at the time. That was more me than the source. All right, last question from the chat. Are there any benefits of using retailer mobile apps over web browsers when trying to secure one from a drop? Super good question, and it really depends on the retailer. Target's pretty good, but the website's just as good. And I find using Apple Pay is really easy. So, but using PayPal is probably the best. That's a tip that originally came from Jake Randall, YouTube extraordinaire at this, and who we all hope is doing well because he's in the hospital right now, but he is still keeping up with his live stream, so he's great. And it's great to see. But yeah, pay through PayPal on the Target website doesn't necessarily show up in the app, especially if we're on iOS. Replace it with Apple Pay, also good. But PayPal takes you off the Target servers, and that is like probably the biggest secret. And that's what makes Target one of the easiest to get a console from. It takes you off of the Target servers, which are being slammed. Most people are trying to check out through Target's Red Card or their own debit card or credit card through Target's webpage. Well, that webpage is being hammered at that moment with like millions of people trying to access it. So by going to Target servers, you're able to kind of be whisked off to PayPal servers and pay for it, and then come back to Target servers and all that page loads, says order processed, and you're good to pick it up. Huge. And I don't say it very often because I don't want scammers to be like, Matt said PayPal was okay, pay me money. Just only trust legitimate stores and Target. Gamefly. Someone mentioned Gamefly in the chat, and that is you have to be a member for 30 days or more to get that Gamefly very rare restock, and they rip through it so fast that I don't tend to post it, only because every time I post an alert about Gamefly restocks, people tend to sign up for the 30-day membership or the membership, and then don't realize you have to be a member for 30 days, and they end up with a membership and no console. So not as fun. Yeah, I'm going to take one or two more questions from here, but if you have more questions, I will answer them manually because we're at 8:50 now. I was only going to do this for like 45 minutes, 5 minutes overtime. Is there even a point? That's not going to be one of the questions. Yes, there is a point because everybody wants a console, and there's some good games coming out right now. That's not one of the two questions. When do you think Sony is going to get that chip for the PS5 so they can stop selling out so fast? So there was a theorized from like, I think it was like the CFO or something, that they could like change up the chip process to make it easier to make the console. And every other website besides TechRadar went with PlayStation 5 redesign in the works. I'm like, no, that wasn't the actual statement. And it was just someone spitballing an idea of how they could, reduce the inventory load. So don't think there's ever going to be redesign. They may change the chip process, but it's just like, it's going to be a minor thing. I think inventory will catch up in 2022 beyond, Black Friday. So try to get it before October. Do Best Buy pickups ever get delayed? Not really. Just because it's a pickup thing. Sometimes they have to make it from that centralized warehouse in your region to the store. That's how it works. You're kind of like buying a console that's on its way to the store. But it's very rare. It can happen, but it's rare. Last one. I'm going to pick out a good one, and I'm going to answer all these manually on Instagram. So check that out on. It's pinned in the top little section and at the top of the chat. I wonder how long it is till the PS5 6 comes out. Probably by the time everybody gets a PlayStation 5. All right. Try and pick out a good one. All right. Any updates for restocks this week? Pretty general, broad question, but I might as well answer that, and I will answer more manually. So, my guess is that we'll probably see GameStop go sometime this week. I really hope so. They usually give us like a 2-hour heads up, maybe an hour and a half. So you'll have enough time for that. And it may be for Power Up members, but there was an instance where people were able to pay through Apple Pay and get the console. Pay through, going back to that previous question about apps versus sites, Best Buy's app is, it's okay. Walmart's app is great, and GameStop's app is terrible. So those, every retailer is different. So go through the app and the website at the same time. I usually am on this computer right here and on my phone, so that's helpful. And if you're Sony Direct, you might as well do every single device that you have. But besides GameStop, really don't have an inkling on any other restocks. Best Buy already happened. Walmart, maybe tomorrow. If it's tomorrow, I'll let you know. I usually know, one of the soonest if it is going to be a big restock. And let's see. Sony Direct has not sent out those email invites. Not a great sign. But I hope they have one. I'll always be on alert. Yeah, there's specific times where I can sleep, and then other times where I cannot, because that's the life of tracking these 24/7. I'm probably going to do this. This is another question I've seen in here when I was flipping through them before. How long am I going to do this? Probably until everybody gets a console and it's in demand, until you can get it in stores, which I think is going to be 2022. So I wish everybody the best of luck with that. Yeah, I like how everybody's communicating with each other in this chat. I'm going to sign off here. I know it's a short one, but we can just do this again if you guys would like. Like this if you like the video, and you want me to do this again. I will try to answer as many questions as possible, but that tells me, hey, this is a good thing. And subscribe, because if I get enough subscribers, I will continue to do this, and that's a helpful sign for me to pitch to TechRadar, like, hey, this is actually connecting with all those Twitter fans that are out now at 713,000. So lots of you still sticking around, which is great, and that helps me gauge interest and continue to take time out of work to continue to not write about phones, which I usually do, and different gadgets, but write about PS5 restocks and Xbox restocks and GPU restocks, and eventually the Nintendo Switch, Nintendo Switch Pro, Nintendo Switch 2, whatever they call it. Everybody predicted it would come out in September, October. Then after it didn't show up at E3, everybody's like, oh, March, that's what we meant. Whenever it comes out, it'll still be hard to get because chips are hard to get. So thank you. I appreciate everybody showing up. I'm sorry I didn't get to every single one of the questions. One day I will have this chat right next to the webcam, but I have it separated currently, working on getting a new computer to make all of this happen so I can track a little bit faster, giving you the extra edge to get a console. And anybody who's got a console who showed up, thank you for the support and the continued support and like referring me to a lot of your friends. That's probably where I've seen the most growth. That's why that counter is out of control. It was just like a month and a half ago I was at 500,000. So it was still a lot, but the fact that it's grown, I will probably be at 1 million in September sometime. The date's always fluctuating, but based on future projections. Awesome to see, and awesome to see people showing up the chat. Yep, subscribe and like if I can't check it right now because I'm still getting used to the software and trying to it is much better with a microphone. So I'll just try to increase production. When's the next free stock in Florida? Probably Target. But we will see. Good night, everybody. I will alert you if there's another restock tomorrow at Walmart. And that's probably the next one to look out for if it happens. So stay tuned to the Twitter and let me know what you think and any improvements I can make. But subscribe, like, and turn on the bell icon because I will do this again if you're all interested.